Roger Ryan, founder of the Irish Country Music Association, you're very welcome to Hot Country and thank you for taking the time to join us today. Where were you born and raised?
Hugh, I was born in a town called Tallow in West Waterford.
And what's your favourite childhood memories growing up?
Oh, at that time my memories would be mainly centred around hurling, Hugh, because that was the only sport or pastime that we had. Because to us at that stage there was very little music to be heard on the radio or anywhere. So sport was the only thing that we were really involved in. And
what were your earliest influences and interests?
As I say, the main one would have been the games. That was until the mid-50s when rock and roll hit the airwaves, and my interests then were really on music.
And where did your interest in music come from?
Well, I suppose my mother was quite musical. She played the tin whistle and she was always singing and listening to the radio. And I suppose I picked it up from there. And then, as I say, when the rock and roll burst onto the scene, I just got hooked on music.
You also have a huge involvement both on the field and off the field in sport. Tell us about that.
Well, it all started in Tallow, and then of course when I moved to Cork in the 1960s and I joined Blackrock, and they were a senior club at that stage. I came from a junior club in West Waterford, and it was a big deal for me that time to come and join a senior club. And not only that, but I joined them in 1960 and we won the Cork County Senior Hurling Championship in 1961. That was a huge deal for me, really.
And when did you become interested in country music?
It would be before in the late 50s when rock and roll started to wane maybe, and there was a neighbour of mine who used to play music that I hadn't heard before, very loudly, and he always had the front door open. So I could hear the strains of "Your Cheating Heart," and suddenly I fell in love with this guy. So I asked him who was the singer, and he said, "Oh, that's Hank Williams." He had a couple of 78s of Hank Williams at the time, and that's when I really got hooked on country music. So I started investigating it after that then.
And how would you describe country music?
I suppose to me, country music is a way of life, and it brings me and has brought me great pleasure. I've made some great friends through it, and I've travelled extensively, both to concerts, to shows and stuff like that. And as I say, it's been a way of life for me.
Roger, you visited Nashville many times down through the years, and you continue to do so. Can you remember the very first time you visited Nashville?
I can. And that was back, I suppose, in the 80s. Ethel and I joined a group from London. That was the British Country Music Association. We didn't have one here at that stage. So we joined a group of there were about 80 people. We had 2 buses, 2 coaches, I remember. And we toured. We stayed in Nashville. We went up to Gatlinburg. And to me, it was like heaven, really. And of course, we went to the Grand Ole Opry, which was the climax of the whole tour.
And how has Nashville changed since you first visited?
Oh, Hugh, since I first visited, it has changed dramatically. You know, the construction that's going on in Nashville now, and has been prior to the downturn in the economy, is phenomenal. I mean, you'll notice that if you're staying in hotels there, to see the increase in the charges, not only just in the price of the hotels alone. And the downtown particularly, thankfully, has got a real injection of money, and it's been cleaned up completely, and it's a lovely place to be now. Loads of music and loads of nice clubs and bars down there. So huge changes, I think, in the whole area.
And how has country music itself changed down through the years?
Oh, from when I first became interested in country music, you mean the big stars at that stage would have been Slim Whitman, Johnny Cash, and Hank Williams, as I say. But you know, they would have been considered traditional country music artists. I mean, you plot the progress of country music since then, Hugh, and it's really country rock now. You know, it's a lot of the modern stuff. It really doesn't appeal to me. But thankfully, there are still a lot of artists still singing what I would call traditional country music, and that's what I love.
Roger Ryan, what do you remember about the Wembley International Country Music Festival?
Wembley, Hugh, to me and a lot of my friends at that time, was Mecca. I remember the first year we visited Wembley was 1969. That was the first year. It was just for a weekend only. And we had, at that stage, we had over about 30 American acts, people we'd never seen or heard of before. And it was, we were at an absolute heaven just attending it. As over the years, then of course it progressed to a 3-day festival over the Easter weekend always, and we made a point of hopping on the boat every year and across to Wembley, and it eventually finished up over the 3 days. We would have 50 acts, and then a lot of Irish acts as well performing on the Wembley stage.
Roger, you were instrumental in bringing an international country music festival to Cork here in Ireland. How did that come about?
Well, Cork had earned itself a reputation, Hugh, as a city of festivals. But the only thing we were missing was a festival of country music. So I was approached by Jim Mountjoy, who was the man who really initiated the jazz festival and is still heavily involved in all that. And he said, look, could we ever get a country music festival organised? So I said, why not? I said, if there's anything I can do and my friends with me, I said, we'd be only too delighted to help out. So we put a plan together. We approached Beamishes. Tony Halpin at the time was the MD. Tony was all for it. And lo and behold, they became the sponsors of what was then called the Carling Country Music Festival. And it was very successful for about 4 years.
In 1969, you founded the Irish Country Music Association. Tell us about that.
Well, Hugh, the Country Music Association of Ireland was founded out of sheer frustration. I was, at that stage, had been writing articles to papers, magazines, and a few periodicals, and none of them would publish. Every one of them, none of them would publish any of the articles that I ever wrote. So I decided if they won't do it, why not publish a newsletter on my own? So I wrote to the CMA in Nashville and asked them how would I go about forming an association here. So I had a reply from a lady called Jo Walker, who was then the secretary. She later became an executive director of the CMA. She was most helpful. She sent me copies of newsletters of various organisations throughout America who had formed their own associations. So from there on, I started publishing a newsletter.
As I said earlier, Roger, you visit Nashville practically every year, a couple of times a year. Tell us about the famous picking parties out there that you attend. And I think you might have even arranged them at one stage.
Hugh. They're fantastic. You know, we have a tradition here of what we call sessions, where musicians get together on an informal session and they have a great night and a bit of hoolie as we call it. So over there they call them picking parties. So the first friends I made in Nashville were Barry and Holly Tashin. So after I became great friends with them and I started visiting regularly. So then we started bringing the groups over. As you know, you were the man who was instrumental in that. And I approached them and I said, would we have a party? And they said, why not? Let's have a picking party, bring all the folks along, she said, and that's how it happened.
Well, we were there for a couple of parties, all right, Roger, and I remember you singing a couple of songs during those occasions. Yeah. So I'm sure you wouldn't mind singing a song for us now, just to remind us of the great days in Nashville.
Oh, God.
Would you do that for us?
I will, if I could remember what I sang at the time here. What was it? Off somewhere the music's playing soft and low, while another holds the one that I love so. I was blind, I could not see that she meant the world to me. Like a fool I said and let her go. That's what it is.
Mighty Walker, we'll get you to play another song later on, or sing another song with the guitar before we finish. Roger, you have met most of the big names in Irish and American country music. Who are your favourite artists?
Well, at the beginning, as I told you, when I was growing up, the first artist I ever heard was Hank Williams. So he became a great favourite of mine. And later on, Johnny Cash was a man who visited Ireland regularly. So we all really got to know him. And he was a favourite of mine as well. But then, one morning, I was listening to the radio, and at the time Gay Byrne had an early morning show. And he played this song. It was called The Race Is On. And after the song was finished, he said, that was George Jones. Well, Hugh, I flipped. I fell in love with the man and his voice straight away. And I went out the following day and I ordered, actually, because nobody had any music by him, I ordered an album which was imported from America even at the time, I'd say. So from there on, I started collecting George Jones, and I think to date that I have everything he has ever recorded in my collection, both vinyl, CDs, DVDs, and the whole lot.
Of course, Roger, you also gave great help to a lot of the well-known Irish artists of today when they were first starting, likes of Susan McCann and Philomena Begley. What's your memory of all those artists down through the years?
Oh, Hugh, they became great friends. I remember at the time I started writing a column. I was invited to submit a column to the, as it was at that time, the Cork Evening Echo. And Daniel O'Donnell was only starting out at that time, and I wrote some nice articles about him. Well, you should hear the slagging that I got over that, because everybody slagged off Daniel, and they still do. But he's a star, and you know, he's one of the best we've ever produced. Susan, a great friend of mine. Philomena, one of the best. I never met the likes of her. And Gloria and Louise and Ray Lynham, one of my favourites. One of the best singers, I'd say, that we ever produced here in Ireland.
And Sandy Kelly, of course, and Big Tom and the Mainliners and all the big names.
Sandy was one of the first, I suppose, to develop a type of a show as well. You remember she used to do a tribute show to Patsy Cline. And of course she brought over George Hamilton, who originally toured with Patsy, and he was a narrator. And then she brought the Jordanaires even one year as well. And she was one of the first, I'd say, to get her own TV series on RTE. And she's still going strong, thankfully.
What are your favourite 3 country music songs of all times, and why?
I suppose, you know, for any country music fan, the number one song that's been voted number one every year is undoubtedly George Jones. He Started Loving Her Today. Another great favourite of mine is Vern Gosden, and he has a song there called Alone, and another beautiful one called Chiselled in Stone. He has a beautiful voice. And after that, I suppose, you know, I like Johnny Cash, Folsom Prison, and he has recorded some great stuff as well.
What's your most treasured possession?
My most treasured possession would be my vinyl collection. I suppose I wouldn't have got all that one collection, but within that collection I have Johnny Cash's first album, which is autographed for me. When he came to Cork, he autographed it for me. And it's hard to single out any one item, Hugh. I have a lot of memorabilia collected over the years. Photographs, autographs, and mainly vinyl, as you know.
What are your favourite memories with regard to country music?
My favourite memories would have to be the friendships I made through the music, the trips I have made, as I say, throughout the world practically, mainly Europe and America, I suppose. But it's brought me great joy. It's been a part of my life, Hugh. You know, I mean, I've been around a long time, but to me, country music has been part of that life, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Roger Ryan, you have won many awards both here in Ireland and in Nashville. Tell us about those awards.
Oh, Hugh, I mean, as you know, I was never in the business for awards, and I loved every minute of it, but I was recognised by the CMA, which is the governing body of country music in Nashville, for promoting and the advancement of country music, and they gave me the Wesley Rose Award, which is given to one journalist, an international journalist, every year. So I got that. I got an award from Hot Country for my efforts for promoting country music in Ireland, and I was actually, which I have at home, a plaque, and I'm very proud of, is that I was declared an honorary Tennessean, which I love.
Well, Roger, you have written and you continue to write for many newspapers and magazines down through the years. Tell us about those papers and news, outlets you have written for.
Oh God, Hugh, there are so many. Well, as I say, at the beginning, I formed the Country Music Association, so that meant producing a newsletter. Then I moved to Thurles for a while, where I was based with the Suttons, and I started submitting my first column at that stage for the Tipperary Star, and the pen name I used was Stylist, which is, is the needle and the thing. So I came back, when I moved back to Cork then, I was invited by the Echo to contribute a column, so I started doing that. There were other, since of course the computer then came into vogue, and I've submitted stuff to lots of websites throughout that, but the main one is still the Echo, and I stick with that, and I love it.
That's a very popular local paper, of course.
Yes, yeah, here in Cork.
And you've also presented many radio and TV shows down through the years. Tell me about those.
Oh, yeah, I'm going back now. Hugh, should I say it to the pirates?
Oh yes, no problem.
Do you remember CCLR on French Church Street?
Absolutely.
That was my first venture. I'll tell you a story, if I may, about that. The studio, it was upstairs in French Church Street, and an indication that you were on air was a fluorescent tube in the corner, and if that was lighting, that meant you had power and you were broadcasting. So I went in one night to do my 1 hour show. It was quite late at night when I used to do it, and I never noticed the tube, and I started broadcasting. I did a program for a full hour, Hugh, and we weren't even on the air. So I tell you.
But sure, you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. I played the records for myself more than anything else.
You also presented a show on Cork Multi-Channel TV for a number of years.
Yes. I used to get a lot of videos and stuff. They were all the norm at that stage. And some of the record companies would send me what they call a loop, which would be 5 or 6 of their artists maybe releasing new product. So I approached Multi-Channel and I said, would you be interested in doing a program reviewing country music albums and that kind of stuff? And they said, yeah, sure. We had a go at it, and we had loads of stuff to use. So then that extended then into doing interviews as well. So throughout that series, we not only broadcast the videos of a lot of artists as well, but we interviewed a load of mainly Irish artists. I remember Sandy Kelly, Christy Hennessy, Trudy Lawler, and the late Pete Duffy, who only died there last week, God bless him. He was one of our artists who was featured as well.
Tell us about your family.
My family is my dear, my late wife Ethel, and I have 2 boys, Roger and Rock, and my daughter Ruth Ann, who lives quite close to me and is, a great help to me, and also mad about the music.
And what year did you get married?
Got married in 1964, Hugh, in Fermoy.
And what was your day job?
My day job mainly was I moved to Cork and I joined M&P O'Sullivan for a while in Princess Street. And would you believe it, just around the corner at that time in Albert Plunkett Street, Hennessy's came to town and opened up a record shop. Oh, that was, of course, every Friday I was straight in once I got paid, and that's where I started my collection. And after that then, I had come, you see, from a hardware background in Tallow, so I was keen to get back into that business, and Sutton's advertised for a City Traveller. I applied and I got it, and that was December 1961, and I stayed with them for 38 years.
And what's your star sign?
My star sign is June, which would be Cancer.
And what's your favourite colour and why?
I seem to tend a lot towards blue. Don't ask me why, but blue, I would have chosen blue a lot in my life.
And your favourite place to visit and why?
I've been to quite a lot of places throughout Europe, Spain and that kind of crack, but if I were offered a trip in the morning, I would have to say the state of Tennessee. It has a lot to offer. I could base myself in Nashville, but there are so many places to visit. You've been to most of them yourself. You have Dollywood, you have Sevierville, and you have Pigeon Forge and all that stuff. And then you go back down to the west. You have Memphis and that area. And I just love the state, and I'm hoping that pretty soon we'll be able to get back there again.
Of course, you visited most of the awards concerts out there down through the years.
Yes,
they're fabulous events. Tell us about those.
They are, yeah. Oh, the country music was always considered that little bit, backward where the music was concerned. But in latter years they have produced some outstanding television shows, Hugh. So the CMA Awards was always the big event in Nashville for the CMA to showcase its talent. And as I say, then they would combine that with a Christmas show as well, which they would tape and show later. But they were fantastic shows. They were equal to any of these gigantic pop shows that you see nowadays on television.
Also, of course, they have a summer festival there, which is also huge.
Oh, absolutely. That was back in my time when I was started going first. That was known as fanfare. That was the time when the fans, as the name suggests, the fans could come along, meet their favourite stars, have time with them to get an autograph and a photograph, and it was fantastic. Then the CMA decided it needs to be modernised a bit, so they changed the name to the CMA Music Fest. They still include in brackets fanfare, because there is one section still devoted to where you can meet the fans. But overall, it's a fantastic week to be in Nashville.
Of course, Roger, you were a great friend of George Hamilton, and you actually stood on the Grand Ole Opry stage in the Ryman Auditorium. Tell me about that.
Oh, he was a great friend. At one stage, I toured. I got him over for a tour with Barry and Holly, and it's the first time that as a trio they had performed together, and that was great. But he's great company, great raconteur, great man. He was a historian, really, Hugh, because he had all the memories and all of country music going back over the years in his head, and he could tell them all. He had the title, of course. He earned the title of International Ambassador of Country Music because of the fact that he was the first artist to bring country music behind the Iron Curtain to Russia, as well as appearing at Wembley. And he was the MC in the original Wembley shows as well, of course.
I remember the first time we went to Nashville, and maybe the first or second time we went there, we did some interviews out there in McGavock early one morning, about 7:30. And you interviewed Jim Ed Brown and many other big names out there. How did you actually get to know all those people, all those big names? How did you actually get to be so friendly with them?
Through visiting, and as you say, make one friend leads to another. George was the main man who was instrumental. George would take me backstage at the Grand Ole Opry into the dressing rooms. This is Roger Ryan from Ireland, and introduced me to Jim Ed. And we had Mel McDaniels also that morning. We had Jeannie Seeley, and we had a load of artists. That we were very lucky that morning, because that was a kind of a special breakfast where all the artists were performing. And sure, they're most accommodating, Hugh. We had no problem getting them out front for an interview.
They built a fabulous country music hall out there in Music Valley Drive. They hold big concerts out there. Oh, yeah. What's your memory of being in there?
Oh, that was huge. That is now called the Opry House. People get confused about it now, because the old Opry House, which is downtown Nashville, still retains the name of the Ryman, which holds about 1,400, I think. But you go out then, they decided to build a big theatre out in Opryland, which they call the Opry House, and that holds over 4,000. And of course, that all during the summer, that's where the Opry is held. Come the winter time, then they move back into town again, into the Ryman, and for the winter, as I say. But it's a beautiful place, and it's a must, of course, on everybody's tour to visit the Grand Ole Opry.
And speaking of tours, of course, another must is you've got to go on the General Jackson as it sails down the Cumberland River. You've been on that many times.
Oh,
I think you actually even might have performed upstairs in it at one stage.
I can't remember that. That's also a must, of course, on the tour itinerary. and that operates from Opryland as well, just quite close to it. And you board the old the steamer, the ferry steamer, and that takes you then upriver, up as far as Nashville. And on the way up, you dine. You have a meal and all on board. And on the way back, then you go up top, and it's all entertainment, and they have concerts going there. And it's just, and of course, the weather contributes to everything. It's a fantastic tour, and most people that go to Nashville will finish up having on that tour.
And another, of course, great visit that must take place is the Johnny Cash Museum and the Patsy Cline Museum.
Yeah, well, you see, in Nashville, that's there are just some of the changes. You asked about how Nashville has changed. These are just some of the changes that have taken place for the better downtown in Nashville. You have the Johnny Cash Museum, and now you have they bought the boot shop next door, and they've turned that into the Johnny Cash Kitchen, where a big, huge diner. Upstairs, then you have the Patsy Cline. Go down then to 2nd Avenue, and you have George Jones, which is a new addition to the museum as well. And of course, Glen Campbell. There was a Glen Campbell Museum opened there only about six or 8 months ago, and there are plans, of course, to open up quite a few more as well.
Well, Roger Ryan, you're a great ambassador for country music, both here in Ireland and all over the world. Thank you for joining us today on Hot Country. And as we said earlier on, you'll definitely pick up the guitar here beside us and sing a song before we finish.
Yeah, you. I don't think I can play the guitar anymore, Hugh. But the old arthritis has
Well,
got
sure,
at
you
me.
can always pretend, and you can sing a song anyway. Is that? Will we do that?
We will. I close my eyes and picture the emerald of the sea, from the fishing boats at Dingle to the shores of Donaghadee. I miss the River Shannon and the folks at Skibbereen, the moorlands and the meadows and their 40 shades of green. But most of all, I miss a girl in Tipperary town, and most of all, I miss her lips as soft as eider down. Again, I want to see and do the things we've done and seen, where the breeze is sweet as Shalimar, and there's 40 shades of green. Without a doubt, Big Tom McBride is one of the most enduring artists on the Irish country music scene. Since he formed his band The Mainliners back in the 1960s, he has been consistently drawing huge crowds to his live performances throughout Ireland and indeed throughout Europe as well.
George Hamilton IV reminding you that you're in tune with ptvireland.com. Stay tuned, won't you, for more interesting news about the world of country music with my dear friend Roger Ryan. I'm here this morning in McGavock Pike, quite close to Music Valley Drive in Opryland in Nashville, Tennessee, and my special guest is a man who has rightfully earned the title of Ambassador, International Ambassador of Country Music. Good morning, George Hamilton IV.
Good morning to you, Roger. It's great to see a little bit of Ireland over here in Music City.
Howdy do. Good morning, if you will. Let's all one time. Pop a top again.
Well, anybody who knows their country music will know that's the introduction to a #1 hit by Jimmy Brown called Pop a Top Again.
I thank you very much. It was a #1. Yeah, I'm looking forward to coming and visiting with you.
You are. And it's in Ireland now. We're talking because we're worldwide now this morning on this television thing.
I know that. I know where I am. Do you know where you are?
Sure do.
I know that I'm anxiously awaiting the opportunity to come over and visit, though.
Yeah, and who you bring back, Daniel? How you doing, Mel?
I'm doing really good. Roger, how about yourself?
Very good, very good.
You've come a long way to be here today,
sure
haven't
have.
you?
I tell you, Mel, the last time I met you, you won't believe it, was at the Wembley Festival in London, England. You remember those
My
days?
goodness, I remember them very well.
When you talk about harmonica players, the first name that springs to mind is that of Charlie McCoy. Charlie, it's my privilege and pleasure to meet you this morning.
Well, thank you so much. Welcome to Nashville.
Thank you. McCoy, you certainly, if not Irish, you have Celtic connections at least.
Well, my father's people came from Cork, and my mother's name was Kelly,
Oh.
and they came from Dublin. Yeah.
Charlie, it's been great talking to you. Thanks very much for giving us some of your very busy time.
Roger, my pleasure, and hello to everybody in Ireland, and I hope to see you soon.
Been in the business all his life and has probably seen it all. Let me introduce you to the great Ernie Ashworth. Hi, Ernie.
Roger, good to be with you, and hello to all them friends back there in your country and
Ireland and
everything.
all over the
Oh
world.
yeah,
We're on the
boy! I
internet
tell
now,
you
Ernie.
what, I always want to go to Ireland. So one of these days, I'm gonna do that.
You mean you haven't been yet?
No, I've been just about everywhere else, but
Yeah.
hadn't been to Ireland. I've been to all the states. I've been just about all over the world, but Ireland's one I always wanted to go to, and
Yeah.
they never have booked me there yet.
Maybe we can get that sorted for you.
Yeah, boy.
What Ireland? You've
Yes.
just been over to see us in Ireland, Jeannie. Jeannie Seeley.
I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved everything about the country, the people, the food. I didn't know there were so many ways to fix potatoes, and they're all good.
You girls must have had some fun. I mean, you were five of you. You had Louise Morrissey and Philomena from Ireland. And then you had Lynn Anderson and Billy Joe Spears.
Yes, it was
Did all
good.
of you agree?
Oh yeah, we had such fun.
Jolly old France.
Yes.
And did you go to Italy? And Spain.
Ah.
The bass man is, I guess he likes to get out of the country, but he said, I talked to a couple of bookers over there. Would you like to go?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Barry.
And Holly Tashin, and you're watching ptvireland.com.
To ptvireland.com. We're coming to you from Nashville, where we've been all week filming some scenes from the CMA Music Fest and Fanfare. One of the first things that strikes me when I come to Nashville is the friendliness of the people. And just to prove it, we are invited here tonight to the home of my friends Barry and Holly Tashin, where they are assembling a group of their friends and they're going to pick some music for us. At home we call it a session, here they call it a pickin' party. So join me now for a pickin' party here in Nashville, Tennessee. Hi Holly, come on out here and say hello to me. How we doing? Hello Barry. Come on out and say hello to the folks in Ireland.
Howdy.
Say howdy to the folks in
Howdy,
Ireland.
howdy, howdy.
Hello.
Good to see you. Welcome, everybody.
Come
Come
on
on in
in.
our house. We're going to have a party.
Looked out my window. What did I see? Coming up my driveway, just as plain as day. Well, here come trouble like I never thought I'd see when you went away. Hello, trouble. Now come on in and talk about heartaches. Where the world you've been. Ain't had the misery since you've been gone. Oh, hello, trouble, 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 welcome home. We'll make a pot of coffee. You can rest your shoes and tell me those sweet lies, and I'll listen to you. 'Cause I'm just a little part of the life you live. But I'd rather have a little bit of trouble than to never get the love you give. Hello, trouble. Now come on in and talk about heartaches. Where the world you've been. Ain't had the misery since you've been gone. Oh, hello, trouble, 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 welcome home.
And I'm now about to speak to one that I would consider has a peach of a job. What do you think of that? Beverly Keel, how are you doing this morning?
Well, I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
Would you agree with my description of your job?
I'm very lucky to have the job I have. I cover country music in the heart of country music.
And you write for?
I'm the celebrity columnist at the Tennessean in Nashville. So I write a 6-day-a-week column on celebrities, and then I also do other stories. Yeah. So it's a busy week.
We're coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee, where my special guest today is none other than Miss Stella Parton. Stella, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Roger. It's so good to be with you today.
Yeah. Last time I saw you performing was at the Wembley Festival in London. And if I remember at that time you had this body-hugging suit on you, and you sang a song called A Stranger. Is it? There's a Stranger?
Danger of a Stranger.
Yeah.
And yes, it was spandex, but that was the big rage then. We were all wearing spandex, and boy, I love my spandex. I wish it hadn't have gone out of style. I'd still be wearing it.
Yeah. I caught up with Kathy Matei during my recent visit to Nashville, and I asked her to tell me about her new release called Coal. What's this all about, Kathy?
Well, it's been an interesting journey. It took me a couple of years to make this record. It's a record of all coal mining songs from the 50s all the way up through the 2000s, and covers the whole story of that lifestyle. And I'm from West Virginia originally, and both my grandfathers were coal miners, and my parents both grew up in coal camps. So this is very much my family history told in an album.
Hello
basically.
to Joni Twitty, daughter of Conway Twitty. Joni, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you. It's so nice to see you guys this year.
What's your involvement in fanfare here this week, or what have you been doing?
Well, we have a booth for our father, Conway, and we sit and meet all the fans from the past and new fans, and we're just trying to educate them on different projects that we have going.
Coming to you from Nashville, we're here this week to attend the CMA Music Festival and Fanfare. Throughout the week, we've met lots of stars from the country music scene, and we're going to talk this morning to one of them. She's Kathy Caviola. Kathy, how are you doing this morning?
Oh, I'm doing just great. How are you doing?
Very good. Tell me, what's your involvement in the scene here in Nashville? Quite a lot of attractive young women have appeared on the country music scene recently, and during Fanfare in Nashville, I was very fortunate to meet one of them. Georgette Jones, how are you doing?
Thank you very much. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Very good. Now let's clear up this family heritage for starters anyway. Tell us, your dad is?
George Jones.
And mom is?
Tammy Winnett.
And tell us a little of what life was like growing up with them. Do you remember much of that?
I do. I think really a lot of people have asked me that, and for me they were just mom and dad. But
of course,
you know, we did travel a lot. I know that's different than for most people, but backstage at a lot of places, that was kind of my playground or my living room.
Yeah.
But they were just mom and dad. They were regular, everyday mom and dad. So.
Did you travel much with them to the shows, or were you aware of their fame and say notoriety during your younger days?
I did travel a lot with them growing up, especially when I was younger. When I got school age, I went every summer still traveling with them. But I don't think I really realized that they were famous per se until I was probably an older teenager or in my 20s. And then it kind of dawned on me that they were more than just mom and dad at that point.